You are fired.
Okay, so something pretty major just happened. A 112-year norm at the Federal Reserve. Well, it seems to have just shattered.
Yeah, we're talking about President Trump's dismissal of Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. It's quite something.
Right, and this isn't just, another political headline, is it?
No, definitely not. We're looking at potential legal chaos, echoes of past economic troubles.
And maybe even a real game changer for your investments, for the U.S. dollar standing.
What's really striking is how fast this one event could, fundamentally reshape the U.S. financial scene for potentially decades. Our sources give us a pretty detailed picture, the legal angles, the economic impact, how markets are reacting.
So our deep dive today is all about pulling out the most critical points from all that. We want to help you really get your head around this seismic shift, the history behind it, and why it actually matters to you. Okay, so let's set the scene. August 25th, 2025, the announcement comes down.
Via Truth Social, of all places. Immediate removal of Governor Lisa Cook.
And this is really the first time, right? No sitting governor has ever been fired by a president.
Never. In the Fed's entire 112-year history. It breaks a very long-standing tradition of independence.
So what was the official reason given?
The president's letter mentions sufficient cause. It points back to alleged mortgage fraud from 2021.
Before she was even appointed.
Exactly. Before her appointment. The claim is she listed 2 different properties as her main residence to get better mortgage terms. And it's worth noting, these claims were first raised by a Trump appointee.
And Governor Cook's response, she's not just accepting this.
Oh, absolutely not. She's flat out rejected it, says the president has, quote, no authority to do so. And she intends to stay put, so.
Wow. So this is heading for a major legal showdown. Supreme Court, almost certainly.
Looks that way. It's setting up for a really protracted battle.
And this is where it gets legally very tangled, right? It all comes down to just a few words.
That's right. A single phrase in the original 1913 Federal Reserve Act. It says governors can be removed for cause by the president.
For cause. But what does that actually mean in this context, especially for an independent body like the Fed?
Well, historically, there's a key Supreme Court case, Humphrey's Executor. That case basically established that for independent agencies for cause generally means things like inefficiency, neglecting your duty, or actual misconduct in office.
Okay.
And crucially, it specifically excludes just disagreeing on policy.
So you can't fire someone just because you want lower interest rates and they don't.
That's the principle. The analysis we've seen suggests the administration might be using this older allegation, which hasn't been proven in court.
Yeah.
Using it as a sort of pretext, really.
A pretext to remove her because they disagree on policy, trying to get around the law's intent.
It certainly looks that way. Trying to bypass the safeguards designed to keep the Fed insulated from short-term political wins.
Which brings us to why that insulation is considered so important. This isn't just politics. It ties into some really painful economic lessons from the past.
Yes, there's almost total agreement among economists on this. You need an independent central bank for long-term price stability. It's vital. Think back to the 1970s. That's the classic warning.
Right, Nixon and Arthur Burns.
Exactly. President Nixon pressured Fed Chair Burns to keep policy easy, expansionary, leading up to the 72 election. And the result, the great inflation, the whole decade of stagflation, high inflation and high unemployment. Awful combination.
But then contrast that with the 80s, a different story.
A very different story. Fed Chair Paul Volcker, he acted with, incredible independence. He jacked up interest rates close to 20% at one point. It caused a deep recession, no doubt about it.
Tough medicine.
Extremely tough. But it worked. It crushed inflation, restored the Fed's credibility, and that really set the stage for decades of more stable growth afterwards.
So credibility is key. Hard won, easily lost.
Very easily lost. And once it's damaged, trying to control inflation later becomes much, much harder, much more costly for the economy.
Okay, so with that history in mind, how did the markets react when this news broke? Instantly.
Oh, yeah. Instant reaction. Classic risk-off move. Global stocks went down, the U.S. dollar weakened, and gold went up. People rushing to perceived safety.
But you said the Treasury market signal was particularly telling.
Yes, that was maybe the most interesting part. Short-term Treasury yields, think 2-year notes, they actually fell.
Fell? Why?
The market seemed to be pricing in the possibility of political pressure, forcing the Fed to cut rates sooner rather than later.
Ah, okay. But long-term yields?
They jumped. Rose sharply.
So short-term thinking, maybe rate cuts, but long-term thinking, what? higher inflation down the road.
Precisely. Investors are essentially saying, if policy gets politicized now, we're worried about higher inflation and more instability later. So they demand a higher interest rate, a bigger term premium to hold long-term U.S. debt. It's a vote of no confidence in future stability.
So moving beyond that immediate jolt, what are the longer-term consequences? Are we talking about permanent changes here?
That's the big concern. This event really shakes a core assumption that has underpinned how U.S. assets are priced for a very long time, the assumption of Fed independence. Global investors now have to seriously consider adding a permanent political risk premium to U.S. assets.
Meaning what, in practical terms?
Well, it implies structurally higher long-term interest rates than we might have otherwise seen. It could mean lower sustainable PE ratios for the stock market, and just generally more volatility, more uncertainty priced in.
And this risk isn't just contained within U.S. borders, is it? What about the dollar's global role?
No, it definitely spills over. This poses a real long-term strategic threat to the U.S. dollar status as the world's main reserve currency. It could give more ammunition to countries looking to move away from the dollar, the whole de-dollarization trend.
Accelerate that.
Potentially, yes. And that could start a kind of negative feedback loop for the U.S. economy. Less demand for dollars, higher import costs, potentially higher inflation. It could reinforce itself.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive really shows that a bedrock assumption an independent Fed focused on data is now, well, it seems broken, or at least seriously challenged. Investors, citizens, everyone really, might need to adjust to a reality where politics plays a much bigger and more direct role in monetary policy.
Yeah, the core insight from the sources is how this action uses, maybe even weaponizes, that ambiguous legal phrase, for cause. It's an attempt to redefine the Fed's independence, and in doing so, it forces a repricing of U.S. economic stability itself by global markets. And that really leaves you with a pretty significant question to think about. If this institutional norm can be challenged so directly, what other assumptions, things we thought were unshatterable, might also be vulnerable? And maybe more importantly, how fast can a country's most valuable assets, things like trust and credibility, actually erode? Something for you to mull over.